Welcome to another episode of NAC Car Culture, your home of tough muscle cars, classic cruisers and high-performance imports. Proudly brought to you by NAC Insurance, specialists in modified and high-performance cars. Mount Shop, undercar specialists. And Teng Tools, get organised. Coming up in this week's show, Kenny Harrison lowrides a second-generation Camaro, and we visit the Carterton shed bringing two families together. But first up, it's Time Attack. We're off to follow a few of the drivers doing battle in the final round of the New Zealand Super Lap series from Hampton Downs. The ProWare New Zealand Super Lap series consists of 7 rounds, and competitors have 3 classes to choose from. The street class is for road legal cars, all the way down to the tyres, while the step up to the Pro Street class lets drivers switch them out for a set of semi-slicks. Things get a bit more serious in the Pro Open class. No WOF required here, and unlike the World Time Attack regs, any tyre is permitted, for now anyway.
Super Lap is based on your fastest lap time, so you're not door-to-door racing with other cars, you're basically running against the clock.
It's like qualifying, so you get one chance, lots of pressure, and try and get that one good lap and get all the corners right, which is really tough.
Not racing door to door, so you don't need to do too many laps. 2 or 3 laps a session is fine for what we do, because we're only after the lap time.
Super Lap's final round took place as part of the HRC series. Hampton Downs hosted a 320-strong field across a wide range of classes, from karts all the way up to GT1, with a whole lot in between, including the popular Honda Cup, Rotary Enthusiasts class, as well as Pre-65s and the Minis. The big turnout, proof of how popular circuit racing is in our country. It's also accessible. You can start off fairly simply without having to dive in toe-to-toe with the big boys.
It's good with classes like 2K Cup, so some guys can get a start for a relatively cheap input. And then you move up to the really competitive stuff like we do in GT1 and 2. Something you get passionate about, you get hooked on it, and you just want to go faster and faster.
There's 320 cars entered to race today, so for us it's a huge opportunity to get amongst, look at other cars, see what they're doing, gives them an idea to go, whoa, who's the Super Lap, what's this all about? A lot of the guys from other classes are now joining, so circuit racing in a whole has grown so much. Drifting used to be the thing that everybody wanted to do and chase, and I think a lot of the guys with smaller budgets are sort of getting a lot more wheel time in Super Lap cars. They're not racing with other cars, so they're not bumper to bumper, they're not damaging their cars. If they wreck their cars, it's through driver error or mechanical failure, but other than that, yeah, it's definitely one to get into.
Jackie and the J-Tune crew were back with this Fanta Hued Accord, the Honda copping a pretty serious upgrade mid-season.
The engine's been swapped with a 2.4. Midway through the season, we put a supercharger in. At the moment, it's about 450 horsepower. We try to put that package to test it ourselves before we sell it to our customer. It's a pretty competitive car for street class. It's leading the championship this season. And at times, Ray William come and drive for us. So it's good to get an experienced driver to get some feedback from the car.
And in keeping with the class, this is a road legal car, from the right stickers on the window right down to the street tyres.
Still got aircon, stereo and everything in it. Just because today's the final race, we just stripped up the interior, try to get a better time before the season's finished. It's not about just building a car, it's all about consistency and setup. Also having a crew, a good crew to look after the car.
Because none of you, our wonderful viewers, would dare miss an episode of NAC Car Culture, you'll definitely remember our visit to Green Brothers Racing a few episodes back, where we met up with Andy Duffin and his collection of Mazda rotaries. Well, this is the real fast one. The 3-rotor racing crew and the 20B PPRX7 have been extended an invite to return to Sydney's World Time Attack event in October. As well as competing in the GT2 class, Andy joined the last couple of rounds of the local Super Lap competition, making the most of the chance to dial in the 7 before it gets loaded on a boat.
Yeah, I guess the aero's working so well on this car that all the small things really make a massive difference. So little adjustments in shocks, we got some great shocks on board this year. The aero's working really well, so just, little things make a big difference. I guess we're using it a little bit for testing to go to Australia, so we get some data once we make some more changes in the car. Have some fun, get out and burn some tyres up. We'd like to win Super Lap for sure, that's the goal. And running in GT RNZ, we'd like to improve our lap time down to about a 1:04. So we're getting close. We're high fives at the moment, and I think we'll get there.
Leading the Pro Open class into the final round was Leon Scott in his 500 kilowatt plus Mitzi. Even more impressive given Leon's commitment to running semi-slick tyres, keeping the Evo in line with the World Time Attack rulebook.
Well, as a kid, I was always into everything that went fast, dirt bikes, motocross. And then I saw through Japan, a lot of the guys over there were running tuned cars from workshops, and they started the whole Time Attack thing with which workshop could make the fastest car on a semi-slick tyre, and it just blew up from there. And I saw that and I just thought, wow, the big aero, fire-breathing cars, big horsepower, and it's very unrestricted, the class. So yeah, that's pretty much what glued me in it, eh? I started from the beginning like everybody else in a street class car, basically the same car we've got today. Brought off a car yard as a normal road car. We did a couple of seasons, then we moved up a class, and then the car got sort of a bit crazy and we went up a next class, and then it got to the point now where it's definitely hard to hold on to, and yeah, we're going for it. This season, for the first time in the 8 years we've been doing it, we're actually holding the championship lead in the open class, which is a huge benefit for us. At the moment, we're just trying to hold on to that. I think this weekend will be more keeping the car reliable and setting a fast pace than trying to get the fastest lap time. I think it's going to be the biggest key for us. There's a lot goes through your head, and I mean, I psych myself out a lot of times, but once I get behind the wheel and I get out on the track, it all disappears. It's just concentrating on my lines, my braking points, if the car's handling right, remembering to relay to my team through the mic that what's going on with the car. I think that's a big key, so they can get an idea before I come back in what's going on. But yeah, keep a clear head, focus on what you're there to do, eh?
And despite a lineup of quality competition, Leon held on to take out the Pro Open title for the season. His quickest of the day at Hampton was a 1:09, but it was his consistency throughout the series that paid off, with no less than 6 top 3 finishes. Andy Duffin and the 3-rotor racing team left well prepared for their World Time Attack quest, clocking a blistering low 1:05 with a big old tank of NOS yet to be plumbed into the 20B. And the J-Tune Accord left Superlap's street front-wheel drive field in their dust and secured 3rd spot in Street King overall. The New Zealand Superlap series will return later in the year to a racetrack near you. Get trackside and see what the fuss is all about.
It's very addictive. It's very addictive. It's the sort of thing that it's hard to describe to somebody. If you get the opportunity to get in a car and come and do Superlap, even if it's just a street class, you will get the bug. Yeah, and you just can't get rid of it.
Coming up after the break on NAC Car Culture, Kenny's juiced 2nd Gen Camaro, and we visit a shed in Carterton, a very big shed. You're back with NAC Car Culture, kindly brought to you by the good people at NAC Insurance, Teng Tools and Mount Shop. We've got a whole lot more to come on NAC Car Culture with Kenny's lowrider Camaro and a visit to the factory in Carterton. But first, it's time to drop in at Auckland's Magnum Automotive for this week's NAC Tech Tip.
Successfully reading spark plugs is a bit of an art form. Many people have different ideas on what a good spark plug looks like in a well-tuned engine. A spark plug I like to think of as a one-use heat indicator. An old spark plug pulled out of your car after it's done 5,000 Ks and been idling in traffic and that, you're going to learn nothing from that. A spark plug to be able to be read successfully needs to really be used in a full throttle situation. That's what you're going to tune from it. So like at the drag strip, you know, if you do a full throttle pass and you fuel cut the engine at the end of the track, you either got to tow it back to the pits without idling it, or you've got to pull a spark plug that you want to read out of the engine at the end of the track. You can't idle the engine at all. It'll give you a false indication of what's going on. What we're going to say is only related to gasoline engines. Alcohol engines, it's a whole different ball game. This is the perfect tool for the job. It's what I use at the track. It's the good old Air Doctor's light. Allows you to look down deep into the spark plug and see the fuel band, which is what you're using to adjust the fuel for the tune of the engine. Here we've cut the body away from a run spark plug. This sort of darkish line here is a hydrocarbon band. That's actually showing you the top fuel of the motor as it was running at full throttle. This band here is a little bit wide, which is indication that the engine was running rich. Looking at this plug, I've just marked it to illustrate the idea of it a little bit easier. This blue line here is probably, a pretty good air-fuel ratio. This one here, the hydrocarbon band is thick. That's too rich. If it looks like that, you're too lean.
Right, time now to check out something just a little bit different. Meet this week's Mount Shop feature car, Kenny Harrison's lowrider Chev Camaro.
Normally a Camaro these days in New Zealand, they're normally quite nice, original, clean, built to original factory spec, or they're muscled out with big fat rear wheels, bigs and littles, staggered, all that sort of thing. When people ask what I've got, I say I've got a Camaro, but then I say, it's not your average Camaro. And then they sort of look at me sideways and think, what can you do that's not your average Camaro? So I explain it's got the lowrider style with hydraulic suspension, and then they start sort of looking real sideways at me, and you either love it or hate it. People love it, and then the people that hate it, they absolutely hate it. They can't get their head around it. And some of the comments, it's just funny, eh? It's just so controversial, It's not your usual, it's so out of the normal, and people just, they don't quite get it.
And a term we're well used to hearing when it comes to traditional hot rods, building a lowrider is all about picking a period.
I always wanted to do something sort of old school from late 70s, early 80s. You look through magazines and see old pictures of them, and you always saw a Camaro in the background or something. I thought, that's what I want to do, just something different, and just the lines and everything that really works, It's just long, sleek, low. And once you get them on the ground, I reckon it just works so well.
While the Camaro stays true to factory form with a 305 cube small block on driving duties, the suspension setup bore most of the engineering brunt, with Chev's offerings ditched in favour of a 24-volt hydraulic setup, running Hoppo's 6-inch rams up front and 10-inch rams out back, plus a pair of CCE pumps in the boot. The exterior treatment needs less explanation. Fergus from Peninsula Panel and Paint hit the car with a base of metallic green with a good measure of metal flake on the roof and trunk before Kenny took over, laying out candy the old school way with lots of lace, endless line and fish scale panels.
For me, putting wheels on it and lowering it just wasn't enough for the car. I had to do justice by putting hydraulics in the interior and paint. Now I think it's got to a point where it's enough. I've done enough. I've justified to myself that, it fits, it really works.
Yep, it might be different, but Kenny's far from alone in this school of thought. His club sports a number of standout cars, as well as a strong family focus.
Carnales, we try to keep it pretty cool, Because lowriding's so small in New Zealand, people are always looking at us and seeing what we do, and and we try and put a real positive vibe to it. Real family sort of vibe. Just have a real good time doing it.
It's an outlook not lost on those in lowriding's spiritual home either. Trips stateside proving that despite geographical barriers, the culture extends worldwide.
We've met a lot of people. They take us in, they love talking to us, we just go hang out. It's like we've known these people for years. We go into their houses and they show us around and take us to places, and it's awesome, man. Love it. It's a worldwide family, I guess, Where it started to where it is now, I'm I'm real proud of it, especially with the work I've put in myself, you know. Enjoyed the whole build and just love seeing it progress to the next level. I think it's at a stage where I've done enough. I've spent enough on it, spent enough time on it. Yeah, it's just time to enjoy it, have fun. Yeah, keep having fun.
Want to see more cars in action like this? Jump onto themotorhood.com now and sign up for our totally free digital magazine. It's packed with the best bits from New Zealand Performance Car, NZV8 and New Zealand Classic Car magazines. Simply enter your email address and you'll get it direct to your inbox. Easy. Okay, thanks to the good people at Teng Tools, it's time now to drop in at the factory in Carterton, a private collection that has brought two families together.
Welcome to Carterton and to a place we call the factory, which is where we house our collection of cars, which my father started back in the early 80s. The factory is called that because originally it was a Feltex shoe factory, and it employed about 135 people in Carterton in its heyday, so it was a pretty significant building. Dad was an accountant by trade, but he had a real interest in cars. First car that he was able to start with was a 1938 Chrysler. His interest was early American stuff, and that went through to about the 1950s. If I was going to sum him up, I'd say he was a man that had a vision and certainly had the passion, determination and energy to push it forward. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for my father and people like him that started from nowhere and ended up with something, yeah.
Among Kerry's most prized possessions were a lineup of Hudson Terraplanes, the dream being the addition of a roadster and pickup to complete the set, something his family is setting into action since his passing. Not such an easy task though, given their rarity, with a huge amount of hand-formed panels required, sometimes just using old illustrations as reference. And while Kerry's priority was securing and storing the components of the collection, Kevin and his sister Tracy have spent a great deal of time on the presentation.
Tracy and I have kind of decided to bring some order to it and to better display the things that Dad obtained and created. But he had a very good memory. He knew exactly where everything was, and he knew if you'd picked something up and moved it. Yeah, that caused some interesting discussions when he was alive, that's for sure.
But while the Dudson's collection was originally motivated by just one man, this story has grown, and the dedication to the cause is paralleled in two families.
Over the years, we've had a lot of help from a lot of very talented people, and like my father, some of those people have now passed away. But we were fortunate about 10, 11 years ago when a chap by the name of Ricky Miller came down to paint a car chassis for Dad, and he's been here ever since. 2 years after he started with us, his brother, Gavin Miller, who's a old school panel beater, he came into the factory and he's been here ever since. And most recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, Gavin's son Scott, who's a mechanic, runs his own business. He looks after all our mechanicals. So we have a very close association with the Miller family. We have a lot of fun together. We work at the factory on a Wednesday and a Thursday, use the cars socially. So yeah, it's a good connection.
Uncle Rick's been in painting for 48 years. My father's been a panel beater for 44 years. With that combined experience, you know, that's 92 years combined experience just in panel and paint. Yeah, between all three of us, we can really build a car. You know, it's good. It's quite good. So yeah, it's like a second home and a second family with the Dudsons. It's not so much work when you come down here either. It's kind of it's a love for the place.
We're pretty focused on getting the two final Terraplanes finished, just to complement what Dad always wanted to do. The place is going through a little bit of a transition. My real interest is in sort of late 60s, early 70s American muscle cars. And we've done a couple of those, just recently finished a 72 Buick Riviera, also doing a 75 Chrysler Charger, where we are going to be putting a late model Hemi motor into that. So that's kind of the transition that we're going into, and I think that's a nice thing because it reflects the next generation that's involved in the factory. The thing we smile about a lot particularly with the Charger. Dad would be turning over in his grave because he was a firm believer in keeping cars original and putting them back the way they were. So this is probably the first car which is going to be a little bit different, but I think he'll be okay about it.
And the next generation is all too important. The old school skills and know-how slowly becoming something of a lost art.
It is a dying trade. A lot of people now just plug a computer in and go away and oh, that's what the computer tells me is wrong. Obviously with these you can't do that, you actually have to figure out and work out what's wrong. I've got years ahead of me yet. There's a big list that we have to carry on with, and really once one finishes, the next one comes on the list and you just carry on from there.
But just like piloting the cars themselves, there's little point in hurrying. You enjoy the journey more if you're not in a rush.
Things will be done when they're done. We're not under pressure to get things done. We don't do work for clients, it's all our own work. So if we have a week where we don't achieve a lot, it doesn't really matter. We'll pick it up the following week, and that's a little bit like what these cars are like when they're on the road. You just got to go with the flow, don't take things too seriously, and just enjoy what's happening around you.
That's us for this episode of NAC Car Culture. Coming up next week, New Zealand's addition to the world of RWB Porsches, a 964 Duo from Hamilton, race car fabrication at Ken Hopper Car Construction, and street drag racing action from Whanganui. See you then. NAC Car Culture was proudly brought to you by NAC Insurance, specialists in modified and high-performance cars, Mount Shop, undercar specialists, and Tang Tools. Get organised.